My name is John Basilone, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. I was 26 years old when I stood alone against 3,000 Japanese soldiers on a jungle ridge called Bloody Ridge on Guadalcanal. I'm about to tell you how I held that position for 2 days and 2 nights with nothing but 2 machine guns, some spare barrels, and a will that wouldn't break. How I fought when every rational thought screamed at me to run. How I killed so many enemy soldiers that they had to count the bodies 3 times because the numbers seemed impossible. How a kid from Raritan, New Jersey, became the only enlisted Marine to receive both the Medal of Honor and the Navy Cross in World War II. What makes a man stand when hell itself is charging up a hill at him? Would you have stayed? Now let me tell you what really happened on that ridge in the Solomon Islands, October 1942. I wasn't born a warrior. I was born in Raritan, New Jersey, November 4th, 1916. My parents, Salvatore and Dora Basilone, came from Italy with nothing but hope and strong backs. Papa worked whatever jobs he could find, construction, landscaping, anything to feed 10 kids. Yeah, 10. I was the 6th child in a house that was always too small, always too loud, always full of love despite having almost nothing else. We were poor, but we didn't know it because everyone around us was poor too. This was during the Depression. You learned to make do, to fix things instead of replacing them, to appreciate what you had because tomorrow might bring even less. I learned to fight young, had to. Italian kid in a mixed neighborhood, you either learned to use your fists or you got pushed around. I wasn't big, but I was quick and I was stubborn. My older brother Angelo taught me how to box properly. "Johnny," he'd say, "it's not about being the strongest, it's about never quitting. You keep getting up, eventually the other guy gets tired of knocking you down." That lesson saved my life more times than I can count. I dropped out of school after 8th grade. Had to. Family needed money. I worked as a caddy at the local golf course, making a few cents per round. Later, got a job as a truck driver. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. I'd drive all day, come home exhausted, hand my pay to Mama, who'd give me back enough for cigarettes and maybe a movie on Saturday night. I wasn't thinking about war or glory. I was thinking about maybe saving enough to buy my own truck someday, start a little business. That was the American dream for guys like me. Own something, make something of yourself, maybe have a family. Then I got restless. I was 18 years old, driving a truck and feeling like life was passing me by. I wanted adventure. I wanted to see the world beyond New Jersey. So in July 1934, I joined the Army. Yeah, the Army, not the Marines. Not yet. They sent me to the Philippines, Manila. For 3 years I served with the Army, learned discipline, learned to shoot, learned what it meant to be a soldier. The Philippines were beautiful, hot, humid, exotic, nothing like Raritan. I made good friends, drank too much beer, got in a few fights, served my country. When my enlistment ended in 1937, I came home, went back to driving trucks, but something had changed. I'd seen the world. I'd worn a uniform. Civilian life felt small now, confined. I was 21 years old and felt like I was just going through the motions. Then, in June 1940, I did something that changed my life forever. I re-enlisted. But this time, I joined the United States Marine Corps. Why the Marines? Because they were the toughest, the best. Every Marine I'd met in the Philippines carried themselves differently, straighter, prouder, harder. They had a swagger that said, "We're elite, and we know it." I wanted to be part of that brotherhood. Boot camp at Parris Island, South Carolina, was hell. The drill instructors broke you down to nothing, then built you back up as a Marine. They screamed in your face, made you do push-ups until your arms gave out, ran you until you puked, and never, ever let you forget that you were lower than whale shit at the bottom of the ocean. I loved every minute of it. I was older than most recruits, had prior service, so I picked things up quickly. They made me an instructor, teaching new Marines about machine guns. The Browning M1917 water-cooled 30 caliber machine gun became my weapon. I could take it apart blindfolded, clear jams in seconds, adjust fire by sound alone. That gun and I became one. By 1941, I'd made sergeant. Life was good. I was a Marine, I had rank, I had purpose. I'd found my calling. Then came December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. I was at Camp Pendleton, California when we got the news. The Japanese had attacked Hawaii, killed thousands of Americans, destroyed our Pacific fleet. We were at war. The mood in the barracks that night was dark, angry, determined. We wanted revenge. We wanted to hit back. Every Marine I knew volunteered for combat duty immediately. We trained harder, longer, preparing for what we knew was coming. In May 1942, I shipped out with the 1st Marine Division. Destination? Unknown. We just knew we were heading to the Pacific to kill Japanese soldiers. That was enough. The troopship was miserable. Crammed in below decks, hot, humid, stinking of sweat and diesel fuel. We played cards, wrote letters home, cleaned our weapons, and tried not to think about what was coming. I wrote to Mama every few days, told her I was fine, told her not to worry, told her I'd be home before she knew it. All lies. I was scared to death, and I knew the chances of coming home were maybe 50-50 at best. But you don't tell your mother that. You protect her from the truth. In August 1942, we learned our destination, Guadalcanal. Some jungle island in the Solomon Islands chain. None of us had ever heard of it. Command said the Japanese were building an airfield there. We had to take it. The invasion began August 7th. The landing was chaos. We hit the beach expecting heavy resistance, but the Japanese had pulled back into the jungle. We secured the airfield, renamed it Henderson Field, and started digging in. That's when the real war began. Guadalcanal was hell on earth. Not because of combat at first, but because of everything else. The heat was crushing. 90, 100 degrees every day, humidity so thick you could barely breathe. Rain fell in torrents, turning everything to mud. Mosquitoes swarmed constantly, carrying malaria. Dysentery ripped through our ranks. Jungle rot ate away at our feet. We were sick, exhausted, and hungry because supplies barely got through. The Japanese controlled the seas at night. We called it the Tokyo Express. Their destroyers would race down from Rabaul under cover of darkness, bombard us, deliver reinforcements, and be gone by dawn. Every night was artillery and naval gunfire. Every night men died in their foxholes, blown apart by shells they never saw coming. Food was rice and crackers. Water came from streams we had to purify with tablets that made it taste like chemicals. We lost weight fast. I went from 160 pounds to maybe 130 in a month. We all looked like skeletons in Marine uniforms. But we held Henderson Field. That airfield was everything. Our pilots flew from there, attacking Japanese ships and positions. If we lost it, we lost Guadalcanal. If we lost Guadalcanal, the Japanese could cut off Australia, and we'd lose the entire South Pacific. So we dug in. Built fortifications, set up defensive positions along ridges south of the airfield. That's where the Japanese would come from, through the jungle, trying to overrun us and recapture Henderson. I commanded a machine gun section, 2 crews, 2 Browning M1917s, about 15 men total. Good Marines, young, scared, but trained and ready to fight. We set up on a ridge overlooking a grassy slope. Command told us this was a likely approach for any Japanese attack. Basilone, my company commander, Captain Swenseski, told me in late September, "If they come, they'll come right up that hill at you. Your guns are the key to this position. You hold, we all hold. You break, we're finished." "We'll hold, sir," I said, and I meant it. Every day we improved our position, dug deeper foxholes, built better fields of fire, stockpiled ammunition, belts and belts of 30 caliber rounds, cleared vegetation so we could see approaching enemy, set up predetermined firing lanes with range markers. My gun crews practiced constantly. Loading drills, barrel changes, critical because sustained fire would overheat a barrel in minutes, warp it, ruin accuracy. We could change a barrel in under 10 seconds, clearing jams, communication between gunner and assistant gunner. Every second in combat would count, so we practiced until it was muscle memory. The men trusted me. I'd been in longer than most of them. I knew weapons. I stayed calm under pressure. When artillery fell, I didn't panic. When Japanese snipers took shots at us, and they did, constantly, I didn't flinch. The men saw that, and it steadied them. "Sarge," one of my young Marines, Powell, asked me one night, "You scared?" "Every damn day," I told him honestly. "But being scared doesn't matter. Doing your job matters. When the shooting starts, you won't have time to be scared. You'll just react. Trust your training." He nodded, looking a bit reassured. Intelligence reports started coming in early October. The Japanese were massing forces. Big attack coming. Maybe a full division, 10,000 men or more. They wanted Henderson Field back, and they were willing to pay any price to get it. We reinforced positions, brought up more ammunition. Every machine gun crew got extra belts, extra barrels, extra water for the cooling jackets. We strung barbed wire, set up trip flares, registered artillery targets. October 24th. The word came down. Tonight. They're coming tonight. I inspected my guns one more time. Both weapons clean, functioning perfectly. Ammunition stacked and ready, thousands of rounds. Water cans filled for the cooling jackets. Extra barrels laid out within easy reach. Grenades, sidearms, rifles for backup. Everything we needed to hold this ridge against whatever came at us. Night fell. The jungle went dark. No moon, just blackness and the sound of insects and rain starting to fall. We waited in our positions, every man alert, knowing what was coming but not knowing exactly when or how. Around 9 o'clock that night, it started. Japanese artillery opened up. Shells screamed overhead, exploding in the jungle behind us. Not aimed at us specifically, they were trying to hit the airfield, knock out our planes and supplies. But some rounds fell close. The ground shook. Trees exploded into splinters. Then their naval guns joined in. Destroyers offshore, firing into our positions. Bigger shells, bigger explosions. The earth heaved. Men screamed. Foxholes collapsed. It went on for an hour, maybe 2. Time lost meaning when you're being shelled. You just curl up as small as possible and pray the next one doesn't have your name on it. The shelling stopped. Sudden silence, more terrifying than the noise. Because we knew what silence meant. They were coming. I could hear them now. Voices in the jungle. Japanese voices, shouting commands. The metallic sound of equipment. Thousands of boots moving through undergrowth. They weren't trying to be quiet anymore. They wanted us to hear them, wanted us to be afraid. "Stand to!" Officers were yelling up and down the line. "Everyone on the line! They're coming!" I positioned myself behind my primary gun. Powell was my assistant gunner, feeding the belt. My second gun was 20 yards to my right, manned by Corporal Mitchell and his crew. We had overlapping fields of fire. Anywhere the Japanese came up that ridge, we could hit them. "Basilone!" Captain Swenseski appeared, crouching low. "Remember, fire discipline. Wait until they're close. Make every round count. We don't have unlimited ammunition." "Yes, sir," I replied. "We'll make them count." He moved on, checking other positions. Good officer, calm under fire. The men respected him. The Japanese voices were getting louder, closer. I could see movement now in the darkness, shadows shifting between trees at the base of our ridge. Hundreds of shadows. Maybe thousands. A flare went up, fired by someone on our line. It burst overhead, bathing the jungle in harsh white light. And I saw them. Japanese soldiers, hundreds of them, formed up at the base of the ridge, preparing to assault. They wore khaki uniforms, steel helmets, carried rifles with fixed bayonets, officers waving swords, flags bearing the rising sun. They looked professional, disciplined, determined. These weren't scattered troops. This was a coordinated assault by veteran infantry. The flare died, darkness again. But now we knew. They were down there, massing for the attack. I settled in behind my gun, adjusted my sight picture, took a deep breath, checked my ammunition belt one more time, glanced at Powell. He gave me a thumbs up, ready. This was it. This was what we'd trained for, what we'd prepared for. The Japanese were about to throw everything they had at this ridge, and we were all that stood between them and Henderson Field. I wasn't thinking about Raritan anymore. Wasn't thinking about Mama or home or my old life. I was thinking about sectors of fire, range estimation, barrel heat management. I was thinking about keeping my men alive and killing as many enemy soldiers as I could. A whistle blew in the jungle, sharp, piercing, a Japanese officer's whistle. And then they screamed, "Banzai! Banzai!" Hundreds of voices, thousands of voices, screaming as they charged up that ridge toward us. The Battle of Henderson Field had begun, and I was about to fight for my life. They came up that ridge like a tidal wave, hundreds of them screaming "Banzai" at the top of their lungs, firing from the hip, bayonets gleaming in the darkness. The sound was overwhelming, rifles cracking, officers shouting orders, that endless battle cry echoing through the jungle. "Hold fire!" I yelled to my crews. "Wait for my command!" Every instinct screamed to shoot now, to pour fire into that mass of humanity charging at us. But we needed them closer. Ammunition was precious. We had to make it count. 200 yards, 150. I could see individual faces now, twisted in rage and determination. Young faces, old faces, all committed to killing us and taking this ridge. 100 yards. "Open fire!" I screamed and squeezed the trigger. My Browning roared to life. The sound was beautiful, that distinctive rapid hammering, 30 rounds every 4 seconds, tracers arcing out into the darkness like deadly fireflies. I walked the fire across the charging mass, saw Japanese soldiers stumble, fall, go down in heaps. Mitchell's gun opened up to my right. Crossfire. We'd practiced this. The Japanese were running into a buzzsaw of interlocking machine gun fire. They fell in waves. 10 men down, 20, 50. They kept coming. I fired in controlled bursts, 6, 7 rounds, then release. Let the barrel cool slightly. Find a new target. Fire again. The gun was jumping in my hands, the recoil steady and familiar. Powell was feeding the belt smoothly, no jams, no tangles. Perfect teamwork. A Japanese soldier got within 50 yards. I could see his face clearly, mouth open in a scream, rifle raised. I put a burst into his chest. He went down hard. Another group tried to flank left. I traversed the gun, caught them in the open. The tracers found them. They scattered, fell, died. The first wave broke. The survivors turned and ran back down the ridge, leaving dozens of bodies in the grass. We'd stopped them cold. "Cease fire!" I yelled. "Conserve ammunition!" Silence fell, broken only by moans from wounded Japanese soldiers lying in front of our position. The smell hit me then. Cordite, blood, torn earth. The smell of battle. "Powell, how much ammo?" I asked. "Down about 2 belts, Sarge. Still good." "Check the barrel. Any warping?" He ran his hand along it carefully. "Getting hot, but still straight." "Good. Get ready. They'll come again." I was right. 5 minutes later, whistles blew again. Another wave. Different angle this time, trying to hit our right flank where Mitchell's gun was positioned. Smart. They were probing for weak points. "Mitchell!" I screamed. "On your right! Swing right!" His gun traversed, opened up. The Japanese ran straight into his fire. But there were so many of them. Too many. Some got through, reached our wire, started cutting it. I swung my gun right, added my fire to Mitchell's. The Japanese at the wire went down. But more kept coming. Relentless. Fearless. They didn't care about casualties, they just kept attacking. This wave broke too. And the next one. And the next one. For 2 hours they came at us in waves. We fired until the barrels glowed red hot, changed barrels twice, went through belt after belt of ammunition. The brass casings piled up around my position like golden snow. My hands were burned from touching hot metal. My ears rang from the constant gunfire. My shoulder ached from the recoil. But I couldn't stop. None of us could. The moment we stopped shooting, they'd overrun us. Around midnight, disaster struck. Mitchell's gun jammed. I heard it stop firing, heard him cursing, trying to clear it. In combat, a jammed gun might as well be a club. Useless. And the Japanese heard it too. They knew one gun was down. They shifted their attack, concentrated on Mitchell's position. If they overran him, they'd be in our rear. We'd be surrounded. Finished. "I'm going to Mitchell," I yelled to Powell. "Keep this gun running." "Sarge, you can't." But I was already moving, running in a crouch through the darkness, through incoming fire. Bullets cracked past my head. Something tugged at my sleeve. A near miss. I didn't slow down. I reached Mitchell's position. He was frantically working on the gun, trying to clear a crushed cartridge from the feed mechanism. His assistant gunner was dead, sprawled in the foxhole with half his head gone. "What's the problem?" I yelled over the noise. "Crushed case. Won't extract. Guns down." The Japanese were 50 yards away now, coming fast. Without that gun, they'd be on us in seconds. I grabbed the gun, yanked the barrel free, looked inside. He was right. Mangled brass stuck in the chamber. Needed tools to fix it. Tools we didn't have time to use. "Forget it," I yelled. "Fall back to my position. Bring the spare barrels and ammunition." "But the gun!" "Move, now!" Mitchell and his surviving crew members grabbed what they could carry and ran. I covered them with my rifle, firing at the advancing Japanese. Dropped 3 of them before my clip pinged empty. Reloaded, fired again. I ran back to my position. Powell was still firing, keeping the Japanese at bay, but barely. They were getting closer with each wave. We were being pushed back. I jumped into my foxhole, took over the gun from Powell. "Get the ammunition from Mitchell's position. All of it. Move!" He ran. Brave kid. The Japanese were everywhere now, and he ran straight through their fire, grabbed ammo cans, dragged them back. Made 3 trips. Never got hit. Miracle. Now I had one gun. One functioning machine gun against what looked like 1,000 Japanese soldiers still attacking. The math wasn't good. But math doesn't win battles. Will wins battles. I settled behind that Browning and made a decision. I would not leave this position. I would not abandon this gun. I would fire until I ran out of ammunition or I died, whichever came first. These Japanese bastards wanted Henderson Field? They'd have to go through me, through every bullet I had, through my dead body. "Not today," I whispered. "Not today, you sons of bitches." I opened fire again. The gun became an extension of my body. I didn't think anymore. I just reacted. Target, fire, traverse, fire. Change barrels when it got too hot. Load new belt, fire. Adjust range, fire. The rhythm of combat, the deadly dance of war. An officer on a horse, appeared at the base of the ridge, waving a sword, rallying his men. Brave, but stupid. I put him in my sights. Fired. He toppled from the saddle. The horse bolted. His men faltered. I saw a group setting up their own machine gun. Couldn't let that happen. I concentrated fire on them, killed the gunner, killed the assistant, destroyed the gun. They scattered. Another wave. Another. They wouldn't stop. Didn't they understand? This ridge was mine. I'd claimed it with blood and steel, and I wasn't giving it up. My vision started to narrow. Tunnel vision from adrenaline and exhaustion. I'd been fighting for hours now, lost track of time. Could be midnight, could be 3 in the morning. Didn't matter. Just keep firing. Just stay alive. The gun jammed. My gun. No. No, no, no. I yanked the bolt back, crushed cartridge. Same problem that killed Mitchell's gun. The ammunition belts were old, stored in humid conditions. The brass was weak. 1 in every 50 rounds or so would crush when chambered. Japanese soldiers saw the gun stop, started charging. 30 yards away, 20. I grabbed my rifle, fired, worked the bolt, fired. 5 rounds, 5 Japanese down. Grabbed grenades, pulled pins, threw them. Explosions, screams. Bought myself 30 seconds. Dove back to the machine gun, fingers working frantically in the darkness. Found the crushed case. Couldn't extract it, stuck tight. Needed a tool. No time. I pulled my K-bar knife, jammed it into the chamber, pried at the stuck brass. Come on, come on! It popped free. I threw it aside, chambered a new round, slammed the bolt home. The gun was running again. I swung it toward the Japanese, now only 15 yards away. Fired point blank. The effect was devastating. Men flew backward like rag dolls. Blood misted in the air. They broke, ran back down the ridge. I was shaking, couldn't stop. My hands trembled on the gun. I'd come within seconds of being overrun, seconds of dying with a knife in my hand, fighting to the last breath. Powell appeared beside me. His face was white, eyes wide. "Sarge! Jesus Christ, Sarge!" "Water," I croaked. "Get me water for the cooling jacket." He ran to get it. I checked my ammunition. 4 belts left. Maybe 1,000 rounds. At the rate I was firing, that was maybe 20 minutes of combat. After that, I'd be down to rifle and grenades and knife. 4 belts between survival and death. I looked down the ridge. Bodies everywhere. Dozens of them, maybe 100. All dead. All killed by my gun. And more were coming. I could hear them reforming in the jungle, officers shouting, men getting ready for another assault. They'd be back. They always came back. I reloaded, checked the barrel, still good. Wiped blood and sweat from my eyes, took a deep breath. "All right," I said to no one in particular. "Round whatever the hell number we're on. Let's go." And they came again. Dawn came, but the battle didn't stop. Gray light filtered through the jungle canopy, and for the first time I could see the full scope of what we faced. The ridge below was carpeted with Japanese dead. 100 bodies at least, maybe more, sprawled in the positions where they'd fallen. Some were torn apart by machine gun fire. Others lay in groups where grenades had found them. The grass was stained dark with blood, and beyond them, in the tree line, I could see more. Hundreds more. An entire regiment, maybe 2. They weren't retreating. They were regrouping, preparing for another assault. They wanted this ridge, and they were willing to pay any price. I looked at my position. Powell was still with me, somehow unscathed. 2 other Marines from Mitchell's crew had made it to my foxhole. 4 of us. 4 Marines with 1 machine gun against what I estimated was 2,000 Japanese soldiers. The math was impossible. But we were Marines. We didn't surrender. We didn't retreat. We held the line. "Ammo check," I ordered. "2 belts left, Sarge," Powell said quietly. "Maybe 500 rounds total." 500 rounds, against 2,000 men. That was 1 bullet for every 4 enemy soldiers, assuming every bullet hit, assuming the gun didn't jam, assuming we lived long enough to fire them all. My hands were black with powder residue and blood, some mine, some from wounded men I'd helped. My uniform was torn, scorched from muzzle flash and hot brass. I had a gash across my forehead from shrapnel I didn't remember getting. My shoulder was screaming from hours of recoil. I'd been fighting for 8, maybe 9 hours straight, and I was so damn thirsty. We'd used all our water for the gun's cooling jacket. My canteen was empty. My mouth tasted like copper and ash. But I couldn't stop. The moment I stopped, we died. "Here they come again!" someone yelled. I looked down the ridge. They were forming up. Different tactics this time. They'd learned. Instead of mass banzai charges, they were advancing by squads, using fire and maneuver. Professionally. Like real soldiers, not fanatics. Whistles blew. They moved forward in bounds, 1 squad firing while another advanced. Using dead ground. Using the bodies of their fallen comrades for cover. Getting closer before we could engage effectively. I waited. Had to make every round count now. Let them get close. Closer. 75 yards. I opened up. Traversed the gun left to right, methodical, controlled bursts. 3 rounds here, 4 rounds there. Japanese soldiers fell, but others kept coming. They were learning to spread out, making themselves harder targets. A grenade landed 5 feet from my position. I grabbed it, threw it back. It exploded in mid-air over a group of Japanese. They scattered. 50 yards now. I could see their faces clearly. Young men, old men, all determined. They were screaming, but I couldn't hear them anymore. My ears were gone from the constant gunfire, just a high-pitched ringing that never stopped. I fired. Changed the barrel, so hot the metal was blue. Powell slammed in a new barrel. I fired again. The gun was our lifeline. As long as it kept running, we had a chance. 40 yards. They were shooting back now, concentrated fire at my position. Bullets zinged past, thudded into sandbags, pinged off the gun's water jacket. A round hit my helmet, snapped my head back. Felt like getting hit with a hammer. But the helmet held. I shook my head, kept firing. 30 yards. Too close. Way too close. At this range, they could throw grenades accurately. I saw arms cocking back, grenades arcing through the air. "Down!" I screamed. We ducked. Explosions all around our position, dirt and shrapnel everywhere. Something hit my leg, sharp and hot. Ignored it. Popped back up. Fired. A Japanese soldier made it to within 20 feet. He was raising his rifle, aiming at me. I swung the machine gun toward him. Too slow. He was going to shoot first. Powell shot him with his rifle. The Japanese went down hard. Powell worked the bolt, looked for another target. Good Marine. I'd put him in for a medal if we lived through this. The assault broke again. They fell back, leaving more bodies. But I knew they'd be back. They weren't going to stop until they took this ridge, or we killed every last one of them. "Last belt, Sarge," Powell said. His voice was flat, dead. He knew what that meant. I looked at the ammunition belt. 250 rounds, maybe less. At the rate they were attacking, that would last maybe 5 minutes of combat. After that, we'd fight with rifles. Then grenades. Then knives and entrenching tools and bare hands if it came to that. We'd fight until we were dead, because that's what Marines do. I thought about home. About Mama in Raritan, probably at church right now, praying for me. About my brothers and sisters, going about their Sunday routines. About a world where men didn't try to kill each other over a jungle ridge nobody had heard of 6 months ago. I thought about the Marines who'd already died tonight. Good men. Friends. Mitchell's assistant gunner, whose name I couldn't remember right now through the fog of exhaustion. A dozen others up and down this line. Dead because the Japanese wanted Henderson Field, and we wouldn't give it to them. Those men deserved better than me giving up. Better than me saying, 250 rounds isn't enough, I quit. I checked the gun. Barrel was worn, rifling probably shot out. Accuracy would be degraded. Didn't matter at these ranges. Point and shoot. They were so close I couldn't miss. The cooling jacket was leaking. We'd taken hits on it, punctured it. The water was gone. The gun would overheat faster now. Might seize up completely. Risk we'd have to take. The feed mechanism was loose. Too much sustained firing had rattled bolts loose. The gun might fall apart. Might not. Only one way to find out. I looked at Powell and the other 2 Marines. Kids, really. 19, 20 years old. Scared to death, but still here, still ready to fight. They looked to me for leadership, for confidence, for hope. I couldn't give them hope. We were probably going to die in the next hour. But I could give them purpose. "Listen to me," I said. "We're almost out of ammunition. When it's gone, we fight with rifles. When the rifles are empty, we use grenades. When the grenades are gone, we fix bayonets. We will hold this position until we are relieved or we are dead. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. We are United States Marines, and this is our ridge. Understood?" "Yes, Sergeant," they barked back. Automatic response, drilled into them in boot camp. But I saw something else in their eyes. Acceptance. They'd made peace with dying. Now they'd make the enemy pay for killing them. A runner appeared, sliding into our foxhole. Message from the company commander. Captain says help is coming, reinforcements moving up. Hold for another hour. Another hour. 60 minutes. 3,600 seconds. An eternity in combat. We'll hold, I told him. Tell the captain we'll hold. He ran off. Brave kid, running through fire to carry messages. Probably get killed doing it. Everyone was brave tonight. Everyone did their jobs. That's what made us Marines. I heard it then. The sound I'd been dreading. Tanks. Japanese tanks, engines roaring, tracks clanking. They were bringing armor up to support the next assault. Type 97 Chiha medium tanks, probably. We'd seen them before. Machine guns, 57mm main gun. Against infantry in foxholes, devastating. 2 tanks emerged from the jungle. Their turrets traversed, looking for targets. Found us. The lead tank's gun fired. The shell screamed past, exploded behind our position. Close. Too close. I swung the machine gun toward the tank. The .30 caliber wouldn't penetrate armor, but I could blind them. I aimed for the vision slits, the driver's viewport, poured fire into the tank's front. Sparks flew. The tank buttoned up, commander dropping inside, hatches slamming shut. Blind tank. Good. But it was still advancing, infantry following behind it. I had no anti-tank weapons, no bazookas, no mines, nothing. Just a machine gun that couldn't hurt it. Think. Think. The tank hit a crater, tilted. For just a second, its thin belly armor was exposed, thinner than the frontal armor. Still too thick for .30 caliber, but maybe. I fired at the tracks. Long shot, but if I could break a track, immobilize it. The belt ran dry. Empty. The gun went silent. Last ammunition gone. The tank kept coming. 15 yards away, 10 yards. Its machine gun opened up, spraying our position. We ducked below the foxhole lip. This was it. This was how we died. Crushed under tank treads or shot to pieces by its guns. I grabbed a grenade. My last grenade. Against a tank, useless. But I'd throw it anyway. Go down fighting. The tank was 5 yards away. I could smell the exhaust, hear the engine roaring. Pulled the pin, and then, boom! The tank exploded, just erupted in flames. The turret blew off, spinning through the air. Secondary explosions as ammunition cooked off inside. What the hell? I looked left. Marine engineers running up with satchel charges and bazookas. Reinforcements. The help the runner had promised. They'd blown the tank. We're engaging the second one now. And behind them, more Marines. A whole platoon, maybe 40 men, rushing up to reinforce our position. Fresh troops. Fresh ammunition. Fresh hope. The second tank tried to retreat. A bazooka round hit it in the rear, penetrated the engine compartment. It ground to a halt, burning. The Japanese infantry, seeing their armor destroyed and fresh American troops arriving, broke. Actually broke. Turned and ran back into the jungle. After fighting all night, after losing hundreds of men, they finally gave up. Silence fell over the ridge. Real silence, not the temporary quiet between assaults. The battle was over. I stood up. My legs nearly gave out. I'd been crouching, fighting for 10 hours straight. My body was done. Captain Swenseski appeared, surrounded by other officers. He looked at me, at the gun, at the pile of brass casings that came up to my knees, at the bodies scattered across the ridge. His face was pale. Basilone, my God, Basilone. I tried to speak, couldn't. My voice was gone from screaming orders. I just nodded. A lieutenant I didn't recognize was counting bodies. Sir, preliminary count shows at least 38 enemy KIA directly in front of this position. Maybe more we can't see in the jungle. 1 machine gun. This is impossible. Not impossible, just necessary. Marines were bringing up water, ammunition, medical supplies. A corpsman ran to me, started checking my wounds. I had more than I'd realized. Shrapnel in my leg, arm, shoulder, burns on my hands and arms, cuts and gashes from near misses. Probably a concussion from that round that hit my helmet. Nothing fatal. I'd live. Powell collapsed beside me, just sat down hard and started crying. Release of adrenaline, fear, exhaustion. I put my hand on his shoulder, let him cry. He'd earned it. We all had. How many? I asked the captain. My voice was a rasp. How many did they hit us with? 3 regiments, he said quietly. Intelligence estimates about 3,000 men total attacked this sector. You and your crews stopped the main thrust, gave us time to reinforce. If they'd broken through here, he didn't finish, didn't need to. 3,000 men. I'd helped stop 3,000 men with 1 machine gun. I looked down at that Browning. Barrel shot out, cooling jacket leaking, feed mechanism loose. It had fired thousands and thousands of rounds tonight. By all rights, it should have failed, broken apart, quit. But it didn't. It kept running because I needed it to run, because Marines were depending on it. Hell of a gun, I whispered. Hell of a Marine, the captain replied. I sat down finally, let the corpsman bandage my wounds, drank water, couldn't stop drinking. I'd never been so thirsty. Ate a ration bar. Tasted like sawdust, but I didn't care. The sun was fully up now. Another day on Guadalcanal, another day in hell. But we'd held. The ridge was ours. Henderson Field was safe. The Japanese had thrown everything they had at us, and we'd thrown it back in their faces. I'd done my job. That's all. Just my job. But as I sat there, watching Marines dig in, prepare for the next attack, count our dead and wounded, I felt something. Pride, maybe. Or just relief at still being alive. I was a Marine, a United States Marine, and nobody, not the Japanese, not the jungle, not hell itself, could break that. They evacuated me 3 days later. My wounds were infected, jungle rot setting in fast in that heat and humidity. The corpsman said if I didn't get to a field hospital soon, I'd lose the leg, maybe die from blood poisoning. I didn't want to go. My men were still on that ridge. The Japanese were still out there. Who'd man the guns if I left? Basilone, that's an order, Captain Swenseski said. You've done enough, more than enough. Get yourself patched up. We'll hold the line. So I went. They carried me on a stretcher to the beach, loaded me on a transport boat, shipped me to a hospital ship offshore. Clean sheets, real food, doctors and nurses. Felt like a different world from the hell of that ridge. I slept for 2 days straight. When I woke up, a Navy doctor was checking my wounds. Older guy, kind eyes, gentle hands. You're going to be fine, Sergeant, he said. We cleaned out the infections, stitched up the worst cuts. You'll have scars, but you'll keep all your parts. You're a lucky man. Lucky. I'd stood against 3,000 Japanese soldiers for 10 hours and survived. Yeah, I guess that was lucky. The other men from my crew? I asked. Powell, Mitchell. All alive, he said. Wounded, but alive. You'll see them when you're up and around. That was the best news I'd heard in months. My boys made it. They'd survived. Over the next few weeks, as I recovered, pieces of the story came together. Officers would visit, ask questions, take notes. Intelligence wanted every detail. Japanese tactics, their weapons, their behavior under fire. I told them what I remembered, though parts of that night were blurry, lost in the fog of combat. A colonel from division came to see me. Full bird colonel, rows of ribbons, serious face. Sergeant Basilone, he said, sitting beside my hospital bed. I've read the after-action reports. I've interviewed the survivors. I've walked that ridge myself. I need you to understand what you did. I just held my position, sir. Did what any Marine would do. No, he said firmly. What you did was extraordinary. Let me give you the numbers. The Japanese attacked with elements of 3 regiments, approximately 3,000 men total. Your position was the key defensive point. If they'd broken through there, they'd have rolled up our entire flank, possibly overrun Henderson Field. He pulled out a map, showed me the tactical situation. I'd understood the importance of the ridge, but seeing it laid out like this, if we'd broken, the whole battle could have been lost. Your machine gun section, primarily you and your crew, held off the main assault for over 10 hours. We've counted enemy dead. In front of your specific position, we found 38 confirmed kills, probably more that we couldn't recover from the jungle. Wounded that were dragged away, we estimate another 20 to 30. 1 machine gun, 1 Marine, 60 to 70 enemy casualties. 60 to 70. I knew I'd killed a lot of them, but hearing the number spoken out loud made it real. 60 to 70 men. Somebody's sons, somebody's brothers. Furthermore, the colonel continued, prisoners we've interrogated say their battalion commanders thought they were facing a reinforced company, at least 100 men with multiple machine guns. When we told them it was one section, primarily one gun, they refused to believe it, called us liars, said no single soldier could have inflicted that many casualties. He paused, looking at me hard. Sergeant, I'm recommending you for the Medal of Honor. It'll take time to process, but what you did meets every criteria. You held a critical position against overwhelming odds. You displayed extraordinary valor. You saved countless American lives. If that doesn't deserve the Medal of Honor, nothing does. Medal of Honor, the highest decoration our country can give. I'd never even imagined. Sir, I don't know what to say. I was just doing your job, I know. That's what every Medal of Honor recipient says. But your job that night was survive and maybe slow them down. You did more than that. You stopped them completely. You broke 3 regiments' combat effectiveness. You gave us time to reinforce and ultimately win the battle for Henderson Field. He stood up, came to attention, saluted me. A colonel saluting a sergeant. I tried to return it from my hospital bed, feeling awkward and overwhelmed. On behalf of the United States Marine Corps and a grateful nation, thank you, Sergeant Basilone. After he left, I lay there thinking about that night, about Powell feeding ammunition, never hesitating, about Mitchell trying to clear his jammed gun even with bullets flying around him, about every Marine on that ridge who stood their ground. The medal wasn't just mine, it belonged to all of them. Powell came to visit a few days later. His arm was in a sling, shrapnel wound, but he was grinning. Sarge, you're alive! I heard they were shipping you out, thought maybe... Takes more than a few Japanese bullets to kill me, I said. How's the arm? Doc says I'll be fine, be back on the line in a few weeks. He sat down, his grin fading. Sarge, they're saying you killed like 50 Japanese by yourself. That true? I don't know, Powell. I wasn't counting, just shooting. Well, the brass counted. They're putting you in for the Medal of Honor. Everybody knows. You're famous, Sarge. A real hero. I'm not a hero. I just... Did your job, yeah, I know. But Sarge, what you did... He looked away, and I saw his eyes were wet. When that gun jammed, when you ran over to help Mitchell, I thought you were dead. Nobody runs through that kind of fire and lives. But you did it. And then you came back and kept fighting. And when we ran out of ammo, you still didn't quit. You grabbed your rifle and kept shooting. You threw grenades. You would have fought them with your bare hands if it came to that. He looked back at me. You saved my life, Sarge. You saved all our lives. So yeah, to me, you're a hero. I don't care what you say. What do you say to that? I just nodded, uncomfortable with the praise, but understanding he needed to say it. Mitchell visited too. Told me he felt terrible about his gun jamming, like he'd let everyone down. I told him guns jam, it happens. What mattered was he kept fighting, brought ammunition to my position, helped hold the line. He was a good Marine, that's all that mattered. The weeks passed, my wounds healed. I got stronger. The doctors said I could return to duty, but the brass had other plans. They were shipping me stateside. War bond tour, public relations. The American people needed heroes, they said, needed to see that we were winning, that their sons and brothers were fighting bravely. I didn't want to go. My place was with my men on Guadalcanal fighting, but orders are orders. Before I left, they had a ceremony, presented me with the Navy Cross first, awarded for the Guadalcanal action while the Medal of Honor paperwork processed through channels. The Navy Cross is second only to the Medal of Honor, a huge honor by itself. Colonel Merritt Edson, Red Mike Edson, legendary Marine, pinned it on me himself. The whole battalion was formed up. Guys I'd fought with, bled with, nearly died with. They were cheering, whistling, applauding. Made me embarrassed. I wasn't comfortable being the center of attention. Just wanted to be another Marine, doing my job. But standing there, looking at their faces, I understood. They needed this. Needed to celebrate something good after so much death and suffering. Needed to believe that one man could make a difference, that courage mattered, that we could win this war. So I stood tall, accepted the medal, shook hands, smiled for the photographers. Played my part. Captain Swenseski pulled me aside after the ceremony. "Basilone, you're going home. You're going to be famous. They'll parade you around, make speeches about you, use you to sell war bonds. It's important work. We need money and supplies to win this war. But don't forget who you are. You're a Marine. You're one of us. No matter how many medals they give you, no matter how many people call you a hero, you're still the same guy who stood on that ridge and did his job. I won't forget, sir. I promise." "Good. And Basilone? When you get home, when you see the families of the boys who didn't make it, tell them their sons died as heroes. Tell them they saved Henderson Field, saved Guadalcanal, helped turn the tide of this war. They deserve to know their sacrifice mattered." I shipped out the next day. Last thing I saw as the transport left Guadalcanal was that ridge. Our ridge. The place where I'd become someone different from the kid who'd landed there months before. Blood Ridge, they were calling it now. Bloody Ridge. The place where the Japanese offensive broke against Marine resolve and courage. 68 Marines died defending that ridge over 2 days of fighting. Hundreds more wounded. But we held. And in holding, we saved Henderson Field. And in saving Henderson Field, we won Guadalcanal. And in winning Guadalcanal, we began the long march across the Pacific toward Tokyo. All because men stood their ground and refused to break. I was one of those men. But so were hundreds of others whose names nobody would ever know, who'd never get medals or parades or ceremonies, who'd just done their jobs and died and been buried in jungle graves or shipped home in flag-draped coffins. This medal I wore, this honor I'd received, it was for all of them. Every Marine who'd stood on that ridge, every soldier who'd fought and died in the Pacific, the known and the unknown, the decorated and the forgotten. I'd wear it proudly, but I'd never forget whose courage it really represented. Not just mine, all of ours. They shipped me back to the States in early 1943. The voyage was strange. Clean bunks, hot food, safety. No artillery, no air raids, no Japanese trying to kill me. Should have been relaxing. Instead, I felt guilty. My boys were still fighting while I sailed home to safety and comfort. We docked in San Diego. There were reporters waiting, cameras flashing, questions shouted at me. "Sergeant Basilone, how many Japanese did you kill? What was it like? Were you scared?" I didn't know how to answer. How do you explain combat to people who've never experienced it? How do you describe the sound of bullets, the smell of death, the feeling of fighting for your life for 10 straight hours? I mumbled something about doing my duty, about the other Marines being the real heroes. The reporters scribbled in their notebooks, looking disappointed. They wanted colorful quotes, dramatic stories. I just wanted to go home to Raritan, but the Marine Corps had other plans. War bond tour, 23 cities in 3 months. Speeches, rallies, parades. Everywhere I went, crowds gathered. Thousands of people, cheering, waving flags, wanting to shake my hand, touch my uniform, hear about Guadalcanal. In Chicago, 50,000 people came to a rally. 50,000. I stood on a stage with movie stars and politicians, and they introduced me as Manila John Basilone, the hero of Guadalcanal. The crowd roared. I said a few words about buying bonds, about supporting our boys overseas. Felt like a fraud. I wasn't a hero. I was just a Marine who'd done his job. But the bond tour worked. Millions of dollars raised. Money that bought planes, ships, tanks, ammunition. Money that helped win the war. So I kept doing it, city after city, speech after speech, even though I hated every minute. September 1943, the White House. President Franklin Roosevelt himself pinned the Medal of Honor on my chest. The citation read, "For extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action against enemy Japanese forces, above and beyond the call of duty, while serving with the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division in the Lunga area, Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, on the night of October 24th through 25th, 1942. It went on, describing the battle in formal military language, made it sound clean, heroic, glorious. Reality had been dirty, terrifying, desperate. But I stood there at attention, accepted the medal, shook the president's hand, smiled for the cameras. My family was there. Mama cried. She held that medal like it was made of pure gold, kept saying, my Johnny, over and over. My brothers and sisters were so proud, kept introducing me to everyone as our brother, the Medal of Honor recipient. I should have been happy, proud. This was the highest honor America could give. But all I felt was empty. Because I kept thinking about the guys who didn't come home. Richards, who'd been killed at Guadalcanal before the big battle. Jackson, who'd died from malaria. Kowalski, killed by a sniper. So many names, so many faces. They deserved medals too. They'd fought just as hard, been just as brave. But they were dead, buried in military cemeteries or at sea, and I was here getting honored for surviving. Survivor's guilt. I understand it now. Didn't have a name for it then. Just knew I felt wrong being celebrated while better men than me were dead. The Marine Corps offered me a discharge. "You've done enough, Sergeant. Go home. Live your life. You've earned it." I could have taken it. Could have gone back to Raritan, gotten a job, married a local girl, raised a family. Safe, comfortable, alive. But my boys were still fighting. The war wasn't over. Marines were dying every day on islands whose names I couldn't pronounce. How could I stay home in safety while they bled and died? "No, sir," I told the colonel. "I'm going back. Send me back to the Pacific." "Basilone, you don't have to. You've already proven your courage. Nobody would think less of you." "I'd think less of me, sir. I'm a Marine. My place is with the Corps, fighting." They tried to talk me out of it, offered me a commission, become an officer, train recruits stateside. Safe job, important work. I refused. Offered me instructor positions, recruiting duty, anything to keep me away from combat. I refused it all. "Just send me back to my unit, sir. That's all I want." Finally, they agreed. But not back to Guadalcanal. The 1st Marine Division had been pulled out, sent to Australia to rest and refit. They assigned me to train new Marine machine gun crews at Camp Pendleton, teaching young Marines the skills they'd need to survive combat. That was good work, important work. I could see it in their eyes. They hung on every word. Because I'd been there, done it, survived it. When I taught them how to change a barrel under fire, they listened. When I showed them how to clear jams, they practiced until they could do it blindfolded. When I talked about fire discipline and ammunition conservation, they understood it wasn't theory. It was the difference between life and death. I met a woman, Lena Riggy, sergeant in the Marine Corps Women's Reserve. Beautiful, smart, tough. We got married July 1944. For a few months I was happy, really happy. Thought maybe I could have both, be a Marine and have a normal life. But I couldn't shake the feeling I should be in combat. Every time I read about battles in the Pacific, Tarawa, Saipan, Peleliu, I felt like I should be there. My boys were fighting and dying, and I was safe in California, training recruits and playing house. In December 1944, the 5th Marine Division was forming up, preparing for a major operation. They needed experienced NCOs. I volunteered immediately. Lena begged me not to go. "John, you've done enough. You have the Medal of Honor. Nobody expects you to go back." "I expect me to go back," I said. "I'm a Marine, Lena. This is what I do." She cried, but she understood. She was a Marine too. She knew about duty and honor and sacrifice. They assigned me to Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 27th Marines, 5th Marine Division. Machine gun platoon sergeant. Back where I belonged, with a weapon, with Marines, preparing for combat. We trained hard. The new operation was going to be tough, they said. An island fortress, heavily defended. We'd need every bit of skill and courage we had. February 1945. We loaded onto transports. Only then did we learn the target. Iwo Jima, a tiny volcanic island, 8 square miles of hell. The Japanese had 30,000 troops dug into caves and bunkers. They'd fight to the last man. Intelligence estimated 30% casualties among the assault forces. I wrote Lena one last letter before we sailed. Told her I loved her. Told her if anything happened, she should remember the good times. Told her I was proud to be a Marine, proud to serve, proud to fight for our country. I had a feeling I wouldn't be coming back from Iwo Jima. Can't explain it, just a certainty deep in my gut. This island was going to kill me, but I went anyway, because that's what Marines do. February 19th, 1945, D-Day, Iwo Jima. We hit the beach in the first wave. The volcanic sand was so soft our vehicles bogged down. Japanese artillery and mortars opened up. Men were dying before they got off the landing craft. The beach was chaos. Wounded, screaming, officers yelling orders nobody could hear over the explosions, Marines trying to move forward through sand that sucked at their boots. I led my platoon off the beach toward our objective. We had to secure a position for our machine guns, establish fields of fire. Japanese fire was coming from everywhere: bunkers, caves, spider holes. For every position we knocked out, 2 more opened up. We fought for hours, took casualties, but we pushed forward, meter by meter, taking ground and holding it. As evening approached, we'd made maybe 200 yards inland. Not much, but every yard was paid for in blood. I was setting up defensive positions, organizing fields of fire, doing what I'd done 100 times in training and at Guadalcanal. A Japanese mortar barrage hit our position. I was moving between gun crews, checking their setups, when the world exploded. I don't remember the impact. One second I was walking, the next I was on the ground, ears ringing, unable to move. Couldn't feel my legs. Looked down, saw blood. Too much blood. Corpsman appeared above me, young kid, scared. "Hang on, Sergeant, you're gonna be okay." But I knew. I'd seen enough wounded men to know. This was it. This was how it ended. Not on Guadalcanal, where I'd faced 3,000 Japanese, but here on this God-forsaken volcanic rock, killed by a random mortar round. I wasn't scared, just tired. So tired. I thought about Mama, about Lena, about the boys I'd trained, hoping they'd remember what I'd taught them, hoping it would keep them alive. About the ridge on Guadalcanal, the gun that never quit, the night I became someone different. Had I done enough? Had my life mattered? Yes. I'd stood when it mattered. I'd fought for my country and my brothers. I'd saved lives at Guadalcanal. I'd trained hundreds of Marines. I'd done my duty. That was enough. The corpsman was still working on me, but his face told me everything. He knew, too. "Tell my wife," I managed to whisper. "Tell her I love her." The world was fading, gray at the edges, getting darker. I heard voices, Marine voices, my boys, calling for a corpsman, trying to help. Good men. They'd carry on. They'd take Iwo Jima, and then Okinawa, and then Japan itself. They'd win this war. My last thought was of that ridge, of standing behind that machine gun, refusing to quit, refusing to break, of being a United States Marine. I died on Iwo Jima on February 19th, 1945, 28 years old. Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone, Medal of Honor, Navy Cross. the only enlisted Marine to receive both decorations in World War II. They buried me at Arlington National Cemetery, Section 12, Grave 384. My headstone reads, John Basilone, Gunnery Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps, World War II, Medal of Honor. But I'm not really there. I'm on Guadalcanal, on that ridge, behind that gun. Forever 26 years old, forever fighting, forever a Marine. They named ships after me, streets, VFW posts, a parade in my hometown every year. They made movies, wrote books, told my story to new generations. All I ever wanted was to be a good Marine, to do my duty, to stand with my brothers. I did that. On Guadalcanal, I stood when it would have been easier to run. I fought when quitting would have been understandable. I held that ridge because American Marines don't surrender, don't retreat, don't break. That's my legacy. Not the medals, not the fame, but the example. That one person, in the right place at the right time, with courage and determination, can change history. I was just a kid from New Jersey who wanted to serve his country. But on October 24, 1942, I became something more. I became what America needed, a warrior, a hero, a Marine. And I'd do it all again. Semper Fi. If you're hearing my story today, in whatever year you're listening, I want you to understand something. War isn't glorious. It's not an adventure. It's young men dying in mud and blood, far from home, fighting for ideals they barely understand but believe in with all their hearts. But sometimes war is necessary. When evil rises, when tyranny threatens freedom, good people must stand, must fight, must be willing to pay the ultimate price. We fought the Japanese Empire, stopped their conquest of the Pacific, freed millions from occupation and oppression. 16 million Americans served in World War II. 405,000 never came home. Every single one of them believed America was worth fighting for, worth dying for. They believed in freedom, in democracy, in the idea that all people deserve liberty, justice, opportunity. These aren't just words. These are principles that generations of Americans have bled and died to protect. Look at your freedom today. Your right to speak, to worship, to live as you choose. Men and women died to give you that. Never forget it. Never take it for granted. Visit the memorials, read the names, understand the cost. These weren't statistics. They were people. Sons, brothers, fathers, husbands. They had dreams, plans, futures. They gave them all up for you. Live lives worthy of that sacrifice. Be good citizens, serve your communities, stand up for what's right, defend the weak, oppose tyranny. That's how you honor us, not with words, but with actions. I stood on a ridge on Guadalcanal because I had to, because my brothers needed me, because America needed me. I'd do it again without hesitation. That's what Americans do. We stand up, we fight back, we never surrender. Remember that. When times get hard, when you wonder if anything matters, remember that ordinary Americans once faced the greatest evil the world had ever seen. And we won. Not because we were special, because we were American. You are too. Never forget what that means. Freedom isn't free. It's paid for in blood and sacrifice and courage. Honor that payment. Live free, live well, live American. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Semper Fidelis, always faithful.